All right, so huge news in the tennis world. Jannik Sinner, fresh off that U.S. Open win, might actually be sidelined. Remember that whole thing with a positive test for Klossball?
Yeah.
Turns out the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, wants a do-over, even though an independent tribunal already cleared him. They're appealing the decision, and we're talking about a potential 1 to 2 year suspension.
Wow.
So today we're going to break down what this all means for Sinner, why WADA is pushing back so hard, and what this means for the future of tennis, really.
It's definitely a head-scratcher at first glance, right? I mean, Sinner gets cleared, he's on top of the world, and then bam, W steps in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like celebrating a Grand Slam win with, like, a rain delay.
Yeah, right.
So help us understand this. Why would WADA even appeal if Sinner was already cleared of, like, intentionally doping?
Well, you got to think of WADA like they're like the guardians of fair play. And not just in tennis, but across all sports. So it's not really about targeting individuals, but making sure the rules are applied consistently,
Okay, so, like, they're thinking big picture here.
Exactly. They're playing the long game. Now, this doesn't mean they're out to make an example out of Sinner, but they are definitely sending a message that we're watching, and we are serious about clean sport.
Okay, so that explains kind of WADA's side of it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Sinner for a second. I mean, a potential 2-year suspension at this point in his career, that could be crushing.
Yeah, it's brutal timing. There's no doubt. This is like such a critical point for him. I mean, he's a rising star, 2 Grand Slam titles this year already, and a ton of momentum. This suspension could totally derail that.
And it's not just about missing time on the court either, right? We're talking serious financial and reputational ramifications.
Oh, absolutely. The financial hit alone is probably massive. Think about the lost prize money. We're talking potentially millions. And then there's sponsorships. Those brands, they attach themselves to winners, to clean reputations. Even the suspicion of doping can be really toxic for those relationships.
And it's not even just about, like, the immediate stuff either, right? Like, let's say he comes back after a suspension or whatever. Can he ever really escape this?
Right, yeah. That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Public perception is a fickle thing, We've seen athletes bounce back from controversies and stuff, but it takes time, effort, and a whole lot of winning. Like, it's an uphill battle from there.
For sure. And that's even if you believe he's innocent. It seems like there's a lot of back and forth on whether WADA's being too harsh here. What are people saying about how this case might actually impact, like, the fight against doping in tennis overall?
Oh, yeah, this has really stirred the pot.
Yeah.
You have people who are applauding WADA saying this is like a hard line and it sends a message. Like, even accidental ingestion has consequences.
Right.
But then you have others who say this is a total overreach.
Yeah.
That Sinner is being made an example of. So
Right.
it's tricky, trying to keep things fair, but also uphold the integrity of the sport,
Yeah, for sure. So where does that leave Sinner now? Like, what are his options here, legally speaking?
Well, he was cleared by that independent tribunal, remember?
Right.
But WADA's appeal throws a wrench in things. So now the case goes to the Court of Arbitration for Sport.
Okay, CAS, right.
Yeah.
So like, what can he expect there?
Yeah.
That's like the big leagues, right?
Yeah. I mean, if the world of sports had its own Supreme Court, that would be it. Their decision is final. It's binding, the whole 9 yards. And they're totally independent. No allegiance to WA, no allegiance to tennis authorities or Sinner himself. They'll review everything, hear both sides, and make a ruling based on the facts. Purely the facts.
So it's a waiting game now.
Yeah.
And a nail-biter, that's for sure.
Yeah.
This case really brings up some interesting questions, though, even beyond just Sinner himself and his situation.
Yeah.
It feels like this could really be a turning point for how tennis handles doping,
Yeah, it really feels like almost like a wake-up call for tennis, What do you think? Are we going to see some big changes in how the sport handles these kinds of things, these doping issues?
It's definitely possible, yeah. I think this case is really, it's shown a spotlight on how complex this whole anti-doping thing is, especially when you're talking about, like, proving intent.
Right.
So we might see stricter rules, maybe even, like, new tech to find even the smallest traces of these banned substances.
So it's like what's the word? Like a tech arms race?
Yeah, kind of, like a back and forth, yeah.
Against doping, basically.
Exactly, but, like, technology can only go so far,
Yeah.
This also shows how important education and transparency are. Athletes need to be absolutely sure about everything they're putting in their bodies, even stuff that seems totally harmless. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because even common stuff can have banned substances in it. And the system needs to be really, really tight to protect those who might break the rules by accident, while still catching those doing it on purpose.
Yeah, for sure. It's a tough balance to strike, for sure. And it's all happening with Sinner's career hanging in the balance, too.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting, right? It's not just about rules on paper. It's about real consequences. Like, this impacts a person's whole life. It's not just some legal thing. It's Sinner's future.
Right. It's a good reminder that this is someone's life we're talking about,
Yeah.
So as we wait for CAS to make a decision, what should people be paying attention to as this all, unfolds?
I'd say watch how CAS balances things. Like, how much responsibility does the athlete have versus the need for everyone to play fair?
Right.
That ruling, it could impact way more than just tennis. It could change how all sports handle doping going forward.
This is a big one. So much uncertainty right now, and so much at stake for Sinner, for tennis, for everything. We'll definitely be keeping a close eye on it. Until next time, keep those questions coming. We'll be back to deep dive into another topic that matters to you.